You can still see smoke rising from the fields, and then the destruction becomes painfully clear. Look at this strip of houses in Wennington, East London, completely destroyed. But not just that, the entire village and surrounding fields all charred by fire. Experts are still deciding when to let people back in to assess the damage. It's the morning after, and this is as close as you can get to Wennington. You've got the police cordon in place here. People are still understandably in shock. Many of them don't even know if they've got a home to go back to. How are you feeling now?
All right now. I mean, in the cold light of day, it's yesterday was all full up with adrenaline and that, but today, like, you know, looking at my house, it's looking across here, it's all gone. I say it's pretty daunting now. Must have been. We realise now you've got nothing, like, you know.
You're remarkably chipper, my love.
Well, the thing is, like, no one died, and that's the main thing. Like, you know, there's no loss of life. It's only property. I mean, obviously, you can't get the memories back, like the photo albums and all the stuff like that.
And just a few miles down the road in Dagenham, yesterday another fire left yet more devastation in its wake. For the local MP, these two fires show the dangers we're now facing.
We have to take stock. This is London, you know. I mean, Wennington, we're surrounded by fields. We're on the outskirts. The boundary with Essex is literally just there. But in Dagenham, it's a much more urban environment that still caught fire. So I think we've got to acknowledge what's going on here and, you know, create public services that are responsive enough to deal with it.
Yesterday was London Fire Brigade's busiest day since World War II. 41 properties were destroyed in the capital. And across the country, in a number of places, people were picking up the pieces. In Norfolk, a major incident was declared and 14 properties were damaged. Local fire services again this afternoon urged people not to light bonfires or barbecues on the grass. But there was recognition for the public's efforts from the government today. There were fewer 999 calls this week than last, and many followed the advice to stay at home during the peak of the heat.
The Met Office, however, stresses that the summer is likely to bring further hot weather and wildfire risk remains elevated. That is why we're treating this heatwave as an exacting test of our national resilience and contingency planning. As always, Mr. Speaker, there is no room for complacency.
Over in South Yorkshire, the bleak picture continued, but there was a happy escape for one lucky dog. Scared of the fire, he ran into the house rather than away from the flames, where he stayed for 4 hours.
Because it took the fire service quite a while to get here, and when they did get here, obviously they had to put the fire out, and then they found Vicky under the bed.
The outbreak of hundreds of fires amid record temperatures is being labelled as a wake-up call by many today. This might have been the first time the UK has witnessed scenes like this, but it's not likely to be the last, which could mean a very busy summer ahead for our emergency services.
Well, joining me now is Dave Walton, who is the Deputy Chief Fire Officer of West Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service. Thanks so much for coming in. You've been with the fire service for 37 years.
That's correct, yeah.
Tell me what you make of what you're seeing.
I think yesterday was something quite different to anything I've ever seen in my 37-year career. I've served in both the West Midlands and West Yorkshire, and I've seen all sorts of fires during my time, of course. But yesterday was really different, both what we saw in West Yorkshire, but also what we saw on the TV, the images coming from London. We've talked about climate change, we've prepared for climate change, we're equipped for climate change, and we've trained for it. But yesterday took everything that one step further, that really showed us things that we've previously only seen happening in like California and Southern Europe, happened in the UK, in close proximity to the capital city, just down the road from here, and it made it very, very real. And
in practical terms, what was yesterday like in that call centre?
In West Yorkshire, the call centre, and I have to pay tribute to our fire control staff that took the 999 calls from about 1 o'clock in the afternoon till about 8 o'clock in the evening. It was relentless. As soon as one call was put down, the next one rang. And what was happening is, because we have a system whereby if one control centre is overflowing, the calls will go to another control centre. But that was happening with every control centre in Yorkshire and Humber and across the UK as well. So everybody's calls were going everywhere. And it was just absolute pandemonium, but controlled and calm, and they did an absolutely fantastic job.
But it does mean, or it did mean, that you have to sort of triage the calls.
And triage.
And that is difficult, isn't it?
It's really difficult. All of the time, because, of course, other things still happen in West Yorkshire, so we have to make sure we can protect life and property across the county regardless. But then we get the grass fires, the field fires, and we have to pick the more serious ones of those, or the ones that are most likely to spread to property, and deal with those. And unfortunately, that means some are going to have to wait a little bit longer, or some we're going to get to eventually.
You have to take it to assess that it's not dangerous,
That's
so
right.
maybe we have to leave that.
Absolutely, and that's fairly unprecedented stuff to do. We do it on bonfire night and nights like that, but it became 8 hours worth of it yesterday.
I mean, we talk about unprecedented temperatures, record-breaking temperatures. The likelihood is, we are told, we will see more
Absolutely.
of what we've seen in the last 24 hours. Is the fire service across this country able to deal with that?
I think we showed yesterday that we are able to deal with it, but I think the challenge and the bar has just been moved up considerably. Things that we thought we wouldn't have to deal with perhaps for a few years are here. They're here now. This could happen again next week. It could happen next month. It could happen next year. So all the work we've done on preparing, particularly for wildfire and climate change, we've just got to up the ante. We've got to look at yesterday. We've got to learn lessons from what happened, and we've got to be better. And
the Fire Brigades Union have said today the cuts have stretched the fire service's ability to respond. Do you share that view?
I think the issue of austerity and its effect on the fire and rescue service was always going to be linked to today. But I think the point that's being made, and I don't deny there are challenges to resourcing the fire and rescue service by any stretch of the imagination, but yesterday was different. Almost, if I could have had an infinite number of fire engines, I could have kept sending them to fires. This wasn't about a shortage of a few fire engines. This was about a game-changing level of call demand that was happening across the UK all at once, that every fire engine we had we were sending to.
So things do need to change in terms of resources, very briefly.
Absolutely, yeah. So resourcing is always an issue. We're always looking at it, and we're always looking to match our resources to risk. That's not to demand.
Dave Walton, Deputy Chief Fire Officer, West Yorkshire Fire and Rescue. Thanks very much for talking to us today.
Thank you very much.